Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Little Fella Sports Podcast. As you can see, this is part of our IPL weekly show. Today, we're joined by Krishna, who's obviously a resident guest and has been on our show many times before. And of course, today we've got a special guest from RCB Fan Army. It's one of the official fan groups from Royal Challengers Bangalore. So we've got Prasen from that. So first things first, welcome to the show, Prasen. It's an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thanks a lot, Anirudh, for having me on the show. It's a big rivalry that we're looking forward to. So hoping for some real good banter with you guys here.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And Krishna, as usual, welcome to the show. Always a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, thanks, Anirudh. Welcome, Prasen. Thanks for taking the time out being a part of the podcast today. Yeah.
All right,
Cheers,
guys. Before we get going with the show, talking about tomorrow's game and all that. First things first, guys. Whoever watching, please do stay safe in these tough times. I hope all of you are safe and good, and things are fine with you. And please do like, share, subscribe to the channel. As you can see, we've crossed 500 subscribers. We hope to continue and build on this, and I hope you really enjoy our content. So going into the show. So first things first, Present. 4 games, 4 wins. Something RCB have never done before. What do you make? Did you expect this kind of positive, incredible, dominant start from RCB? I mean, what are your initial thoughts on the first 4 games from an RCB perspective?
Yeah, well, what I've understood from Kohli's thinking all these years is he hates the word complacency, and I think he must have used it more than 100 times over the course of the last 13 years. But yeah, I think, look, complacency is obviously bound to creep in for any of us. I still wake up every single day, pinch myself to think if this is true, because obviously we haven't had this luxury of winning the first 4 matches ever in the history of the IPL. But of course, it's a fantastic feeling, and I think everything stems from the fact that we had a great auction. Getting Maxwell, I think, was in some sense a very good insurance for us, because obviously he was going to give that bridge the gap between who was there apart from De Villiers and Virat Kohli. So I think that's a great factor. And of course, Harshal Patel coming to the side as a trade and pulling off pretty much what everyone thinks is out of syllabus. To keep someone like Navdeep Saini out of the 11 and do very well at the death. I think that's an issue that's been sorted out. So overall, I think I'm very happy with the way we have started. That 10-wicket win is probably signs of things to come probably, with that, the way Padikkal and Kohli batted against Rajasthan. So yeah, very happy overall.
Yeah, as you mentioned, obviously the games against Mumbai and SRH were slightly close. Obviously, against Mumbai in the first game of the tournament, it was purely a De Villiers masterclass from nowhere against someone like Jasprit Bumrah to take him down in that Chepauk wicket. After we've seen what has happened also in the Chepauk wicket. So it was just pure De Villiers masterclass. But after that as well, I mean, SRH was a close game, but a game which RCB deserved to win on the basis of performance. And after that, the 2 wins after that, Kolkata and Rajasthan in the past 1 week, purely, thoroughly dominant performances. The game against Rajasthan from first over itself were not even in the game. RCB, the new ball, Mohammad Siraj going in with the fire, and in the middle overs, the spinners taking on, and towards the end, of course, restricting Rajasthan to a well below par score, because in that 1KD wicket, 178 is not really enough if you want to defend the score, and we saw the way Padikkal and Kohli batted. And in some ways, the innings Padikkal played was not similar to what we'd seen last season. He'd obviously got about 450, 500 runs last season, but most of them was more an accumulation of runs there rather than going out and dominantly playing, because that was something we had not seen before. And from an RCB fan perspective, I'm sure you were delighted to see the way the Padikkal and Kohli played, and it was just complete dominance, right? So moving on to Krishna, CSK, before the start of the season, I think expectations were relatively low after what happened last season. I mean, last season was one of those seasons where first time CSK did not make to the playoffs, and the auction, although you had the mini auction, there was not much you could change in terms of the core team being quite similar to what it was last year. So CSK also, after a very bad defeat in the first game, 3 wins in a row in the last 1 week, dominant wins over both Kolkata and Rajasthan Royals. So what do you make of CSK, and how did you expect such a positive start from CSK as
well, to start off from the auction, I think the approach from the management was different compared to other auctions. Even though the auction that we had before the season was a mini auction, it was great to see that CSK were willing to put in the big bucks to get Maxwell. Unfortunately, we lost out to RCB, and Maxwell at the moment is firing on all cylinders for RCB, so it's good then for them. But I think the approach from the management was good in the auction. We were trying to fill in some spots, and Moeen Ali at that time, you would have probably said, is he the attacking opener that CSK need? Well, that was 50-50. But we know how the CSK management and Dhoni work in tandem. They always want utility players. They never go for these stars and T20 stars as such. But yes, it was a change in approach. They went hard for Maxwell, but we couldn't get it because RCB obviously had a bigger purse. And at that time, I thought the 11 was a little unpredictable because there were too many slots. There were very few slots, and there were too many players. So even at one point, people said maybe Dhoni could even drop Raina because he's not had a lot of professional cricket under his belt at the start of the season. But that first 11, when I saw that first 11, I knew that there would be an intent change from CSK, something that was much needed from what happened in the last season. And from the first match itself was evident. Whoever's coming in, let it be the openers, let it be the middle order players, all of them were looking to looking to play very positively. And of course, the Mumbai track helped them as well. And I think even in the first game, against a Delhi attack that did not have Rabada and Nokia, I think we managed to post 180, 180, 190. I thought that was a decent score, but yes, in Wankhede it's always difficult to defend. And I think the performance from Shikhar Dhawan and Prithvi Shaw in that game was very deflating. Let's be very honest, because one thing that we knew from the previous season was Chennai's bowling was decent. It was not as bad as previous seasons, but the bowling had definitely improved. But we just got blown away by Delhi Capitals, and for any side that is a deflating start to lose the game like that, even after scoring those many runs and then failing to just do put up a challenge with the ball, that was really deflating. But in all the games that have come after that, we've triggered a collapse. It's either been a top order collapse, or in the Rajasthan Royals, it's been a middle order collapse. The strangle by spin, the Dhoni special strangle by spin that he likes to do. So I think every game we've had a new player stepping up to win the game for us, and every game there's been a different scenario, and the players have come up to it. I think we can draw a lot of parallels between CSK and RCB with respect to the performances this season. RCB have just been a little dominant, and we're seeing the extra 2 points against their name, thanks to that ABD freak show in Chennai. Apart from that, I think there's nothing much that separates these two sides. Both sides have improved from last season, at least on performance and on paper, and we're seeing the results. So I think both teams deserve credit for the kind of performances they've been putting in.
Yeah, I mean, at the start of the season, not many would have expected that this Sunday, I mean, I think match 19 tomorrow, not many would have expected that this would be the top of the table clash. I mean, because many felt that CSK couldn't have improved so much from last season because last season performance was not really that impressive at all. And when it came to RCB, some felt that RCB still had a few holes, but as Prasen also mentioned, someone like Harshal Patel playing ahead of an India player, Navdeep Saini, that was a big surprise at the start of the season, right, Prasen? So what do you make of Harshal Patel's performance? Obviously, he stayed in from Delhi Capitals. Not many. Many would have expected him to have some sort of role, but the fact that he's arguably a primary death bowler, and so far so good. You can't say how he'll do going forward, but so far in the 4 games he's played, so far he's still done really well. So what do you make of Harshal Patel and how he's done since moving in this season?
Yeah, well, we can't complain, can we? He has the purple cap on his head. That's not an honor that many can claim to have. But look, I mean, to be very honest, he started off on a great note. He also came out in the media and he spoke about how he's changed as a cricketer. Back in 2017-18, he was insulted that people didn't consider him a good enough player. And I think when you get hurled such insults, you transform into a better player. And we saw how he did that for Haryana. It was not just with the ball. He even batted up the order. He scored a lot of runs. So he's basically worked on himself as a complete package and not particularly just with the ball. Of course, he's also a very good hitter, and you can't say he hit the ball very well against Mumbai, but he finished the game, and it takes some amount of composure in the first game to actually hit that, even if it's just one run. So I think, but overall, he's transitioned into a fantastic player, and I think Harshal's biggest advantage is that he has clarity in the role that he's been given at RCB. Because I think for a long time RCB have been looking for that death overs bowler. Harshal Patel, obviously, we all know, he's capable of bowling those slow balls, those cutters. He can mix his pace and slow balls. He can bowl terrific Yorkers. So I think the first game was a massive boost for him to pick up that 5-wicket haul against Mumbai. And since then, he hasn't looked back. Even in the last game, he did get hit for a few runs, but he still picked up wickets and managed to hold on to that purple cap. So I think overall, I'm very pleased with what he's brought to the table. And I think the clarity in role given to him, that he's definitely going to bowl in the second half of the innings and obviously finish off the bowling for RCB is the biggest plus for him, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, that's something RCB have failed to do in previous seasons because you've always had too many changes, players not being given a run. You've had lack of clarity, essentially. I mean, especially under someone like Daniel Vettori, teams kept getting changed auction to auction. game to game. There was just not enough continuity, and some sort of insecurity was basically in there when it came to playing for RCB. And under Mike Hesson, that's definitely changed because it's pretty clear that each one has a defined role. And for example, before the season itself, it was told that Virat and Devdutt will be opening in the batting. And you've got someone like Siraj taking the new ball. Jameson's also new ball expert. In the middle overs, you've got Washington Sundar, Chahal, and as you mentioned, towards the second half of the innings, you've got someone like Harshal Patel taking over those death over duties. So in terms of whether it works or not going long term, but it's always, the first step is always to have this particular plan where you have a clear role defined for each of them. So going on to Krishna, CSK have obviously gotten into a role because the last 3 games they won. Coming into the tournament, the first 5 games were considered slightly difficult for CSK because of the way Wankhede is, right? Traditionally, a 200 wicket with CSK's bowling lineup, and arguably the fact that CSK don't have that much firepower, but that's definitely not proven to be the case because CSK have a very long batting lineup that allows someone like Moeen Ali, Raina, all those guys at the top to go very freely and play very positively as well. So how much of a positive has CSK's batting been for you? Because that's something, as you mentioned, lack of intent was a huge issue last season, and this season that's definitely been overcome in some way by having a very long batting line because you've got someone like Deepak Chahar and Shardul Thakur walking in at 10 and 11. These guys can definitely bat as well. So in that way, how much of a positive has CSK's batting been?
At the start of the season, when we had the first batting lineup, the initial impression was yes, there's going to be a change in intent, and we're probably going to play a little more positively. The only concern that I had from last season was Sam Curran and Jadeja were able to accelerate through the middle overs and give us good finishes, but whatever they tried, the end score was always being 160 or 170, and that was because Shane Watson and the other opener, I think it was Faf du Plessis, were finding it difficult to get runs in the power play. So the first 6 overs was always a letdown for CSK last season. But this season we started off slowly again. The first 2 power plays, I think the match against Delhi Capitals also it was a poor power play display. I think we managed just 40. But in the last game, I think we got 45 to 50. So we're slowly making that change. It's also good from CSK's point of view that Rutraj Gaikwad has been given the long run. He had 4 poor starts, but then the 5th game, the last game against KKR, he played really well. And even Rutraj Gaikwad was a player who was playing a bit like Padikkal, 120, 130 strike rate, not able to accelerate quickly. He did win 3 Man of the Match awards towards the end of the season, but that was seen as probably something, an area to improve on for Rutraj Gaikwad, and he did well in the Wankhede game against KKR. So I think there's been a progressive approach from everyone. Everyone's looking to attack. I think the inclusion of Moeen Ali has to be talked about here. He's come out, he's played freely. He's taken down almost every spinner he's faced so far. From all the 5 teams, he's definitely had an impact in the middle overs, and he's getting the runs for CSK. So I think in that sense, yes, the approach has improved. The shot making has also improved. We're seeing some clear shots. They're trying to hit the gaps, hit the places where the fielders are not there. So all that approach related issues have definitely been covered so far. And I think the challenge for CSK is to now adapt to the different grounds because this is the last game. The game they're going to play against RCB is the last game at Wankhede. Pretty sure that the other pitches are not going to be as batting friendly as Wankhede. No pitch in India is as batting friendly as Wankhede. Maybe the Chinnaswamy, but apart from that, I don't think any other pitch is going to suit batting that much. So when we go to those slightly bowler friendly surfaces, it'll be interesting to see how the team adapts. And I think definitely the team will find a way to cope with that.
Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned, probably you need someone, an extra spinner's inclusion at the moment because Jadeja and Moeen Ali are being used as spinners at the moment. But when you go to actual grounds where spin assistance is there, I mean, for example, if they go to Delhi next, and that's somewhere where someone like Imran Tahir probably comes into the equation in terms of the level. Prasen, talking to you, I want to specifically talk about Navdeep Saini. How surprised were you that he hasn't started the season? He's not been given an opportunity so far. I personally thought he'd come in for the Mumbai leg at least because of the extra pace he has. Do you think he's got any chance starting tomorrow ahead of Kane Richardson, who's probably not done too well? And even Kane Richardson is not your gun death bowler or gun bowler as such, right? But Navdeep Saini has shown glimpses and promise before. How surprised have you been over the fact that Saini's not been given an opportunity so far? And do you expect him to come into play sometime soon?
I think it was a conscious decision taken because Chennai obviously wasn't going to assist Pacers too much, and we did have like a quick in Kyle Jamieson. Obviously, he was paid the big bucks, so he had to play in some sense. And of course, he has impressed in bursts. I think he's looked pretty decent. It was certainly a surprise because obviously Navdeep Saini, international quality, he's played for India, so you expect him to sort of fit into your 11 right away. But I think these are some of the bold decisions that franchisees have taken. To put CSK also into picture, I think getting Moeen Ali to bat ahead of Suresh Raina, who's batted at number 3 forever in the IPL, I think was a bold decision. And in the similar sense, I think RCB have trusted Harshal Patel because if you have both Navdeep Saini and Mohammad Siraj, they haven't really done much in the depth in terms of IPL history. So they took a bold decision to play Harshal Patel ahead of Navdeep Saini, and that's worked wonders. I think. And that's the biggest advantage of having so many players in your side. I think it was a thoughtful trade that to get Harshal Patel in and give him that role of a death bowler. And I think in a similar sense, they are backing him to come good. So I think Navdeep Saini will be warming the benches for some a bit longer. Coming to Kane Richardson, I think he's going to play in the side as long as Daniel Sams is not fit. As soon as Daniel Sams is fit, I have a feeling that Sams is going to walk into the team only because he provides that left arm angle and he can also bat a lot better than what Richardson does. So I think in terms of roles, the roles are assigned in RCB, which is a very fresh perspective from my side because I think for a long time we've had to think of who's going to bat where, who's going to bowl where. But this season we have a proper 11. Players are assigned roles. And I think they won't change the 11 for tomorrow's game, despite it being an afternoon match and the fact that it's going to be played in the Wankhede. But I feel we'll go in with an unchanged 11. And once Daniel Sams is fit, he's going to walk into the side.
Yeah, obviously Sam's recovering from COVID. I don't know if he'll be available for tomorrow's game, but if he is available for tomorrow's game, I won't be surprised to see him play. Yes, I completely agree with because he provides that left arm angle as you mentioned. Because all of RCB's bowlers, especially Siraj, Jamieson, and Kane Richardson, are not quite similar, but the height with which they bowl and kind of offer similar traits in some ways. Someone like Daniel Sams, he can also provide something with the bat because you've got Washington Sundar at 6, Jameson at 7, Harshal at 8. So you might feel that you need a little bit of an extra boost when it comes to the lower order batting. RCB haven't needed that so far because the top order or the middle order have gotten the job done so far. But I'm pretty sure going forward they will believe that they'll need that extra batting option just to provide a little bit of confidence for the top order to play a little more freely. So I think I definitely see Daniel Sams coming into the equation at some point during the season. So Krishna, from a CSK perspective, Dhoni generally does not change 11. I mean, Gaikwad was looking in a very, very poor rut as such because it's not that he wasn't getting scores at all. He just couldn't get back to ball itself in the first 3 games. But obviously, he was wonderful against Kolkata. Apart from that, do you see any changes for CSK? Do you see any reason to make any changes for CSK tomorrow?
I definitely don't see an outright reason to make a change. The change in the previous game itself was a little baffling. They took out Bravo and brought Ngidi in. That too on the back of Bravo providing a wonderful cameo
Almost
towards
cost
the back end of
CSK.
that
Could
innings.
have cost CSK in that game.
And Bravo also bowled well. So MS mentioned that it was because of the rotation policy. They want to give Bravo and Ngidi an equal number of games so that both of them stay fit. Agreed, both of them have had their injury problems. It's not a major issue to rotate them up front, especially at the start of the tournament. It's necessary that they are rotated a little. Jason Behrendorff is waiting. I don't think he's available for tomorrow, or it could be out for another week or so. So if Jason Behrendorff is not available, then there is no reason to make a change because he's the only one that brings in the left arm angle. And if you want him to bowl with Deepak Chahar up front, maybe that's a good option to use because Kohli does have a slight problem with left arm seamers, the angle. So that is the only matchup I think Dhoni would probably want to play. I don't believe in copying Rajasthan Royals and trying to play Shreyas Gopal like leg spinner. We don't have a good leg spinner now. Tahir is probably the option, but I don't see Tahir playing in at the Wankhede. That's a loss. I would rather back Ngidi to bowl backup length and try to bounce players out. But of course, Kohli is beyond that. I think the most worrying sign for CSK is Kohli's in form now. That 75 looked a classy Kohli innings. He started off slowly, gave a lot of the impetus to Padikkal. Padikkal played well, and then suddenly from nowhere he accelerated and ended up 75 not out. That's just what Kohli can do. And I think that the trickiest part for Chennai is going to be how to dislodge that opening pair. and I won't be surprised if MS wins the toss. I think the captain winning the toss would definitely want to chase, but I think more so if MS wins the toss, I think if RCB bat first, we can probably try to expose a weakness, because RCB have not batted first as much. They won a lot of games chasing, and just that one 200 against KKR, and CSK haven't chased also. So it'll be interesting to see how the match goes on that perspective. But yes, if RCB bat first, then that will be a challenge for them. CSK, if they bat first, they have the template ready. They know what to do. They look to attack in the power play, and through the middle overs they'll come strong and try to finish well. But whoever bats first has to get 200, because both batting lineups are equally strong. Both batting lineups are in form, and yeah, it's going to be a crackerjack of a game. I think that is the game that concludes the Wankhede leg, is it?
It
If that's the
does.
game that concludes the Wankhede leg, then I think it's a wonderful finish to the Wankhede
Proper
leg.
top of the table class to finish the Wankhede leg, as you mentioned. Yeah, but yeah, in terms of CSK's batting, as you mentioned, I think if they bat first, they've kind of got a template, but they still need to be wary of trying to get to 200, because even if you end up 10-15 runs short on Wankhede, you'll get exposed very, very badly. But tomorrow, one positive is they're not going to be due at all, affecting either of the teams. So you can say that it's not very lopsided for the team chasing, but you still always have an advantage chasing at Wankhede, because you know what you're going to chase, and accordingly you can pace your innings. And as you mentioned, RCB's top order have done brilliantly. That's one positive for RCB, is that every single one of the main four players, Virat, Devdutt, AB, Maxwell, all of them have got starts, have played multiple good innings also. So their batting looks in core, but if CSK can pick up few early wickets, then you may be able to put a little bit of pressure on RCB. And conversely for RCB also, if you can dislodge the opening partnership, you wonder how positive CSK will be, because whether they'll be going out with this intent, whether they can continue that intent, especially like someone against Yuzvendra Chahal in the middle over. So there's a lot of interesting things to look forward to tomorrow. So finally, before we wrap up this particular segment of the show, I want predictions. So first, going out to Prasen, CSK RCB top of the table clash. Can RCB make it 5 out of 5, or what do you make of it? What are your predictions?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very tight clash, first of all, because obviously Moeen Ali is going to look to take revenge against RCB for all the lack of match practice that he got at RCB. But I mean, to be honest, I think both sides are looking very good. I was a little skeptical of how CSK would do, considering how they were last season. But I think Moeen Ali's inclusion in that 11 has really beefed up their chances of sort of making that push for the playoff spot. But I think, particularly about tomorrow's match, I have a feeling RCB are slightly better in terms of matchups. A lot of bowling options. The bowling also is looking pretty decent. The batting, obviously, everyone's got starts and everyone's put their hand up and performed in different matches. So I think in terms of matchups, RCBs have a slight advantage. And I feel RCB might get the wood over CSK tomorrow.
And going out to you, Krishna, what do you make of it? Can CSK pip RCB and get to 4 wins as well, or do you see RCB continuing their winning streak?
I think CSK might just pip RCB in terms of the matchups. Like I know that Prasen mentioned about the matchups, but when I say matchups, I am probably alluding to the fact that Jadeja and Moeen Ali, given that it's going to be a day game, might get some more purchase out of that track.
Could be a
I
little
think,
drier. Yeah.
yeah, it could be a little drier. And Yuzvendra Chahal has unfortunately not been in that great a form. In Chennai itself, he was. In Chennai, of course, he had due. He had many other issues troubling him. But I think given and I think Jadeja and Moeen Ali triggered the RR collapse as well. So given that they've had a slightly better run, and given that it's probably going to be a drier wicket in the evening game, I think it is going to be the battle of the spinners, Chahal and Sundar against Jadeja and Moeen Ali. It's not just about containing the runs in the middle overs, but also about taking wickets. And given that Jadeja would be bowling to the likes of Glenn Maxwell and AB de Villiers in the middle overs, if that matchup, if Jadeja can do slightly better than those two freaks, I think that will probably settle the game for CSK. So yeah, I'm picking CSK purely based on this fact. I think this is one in part of the game that has not gotten a lot of attention in Wankhede games. And given that it's the last game and it's a day game, I think this might just help CSK come on top.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, if there is ever a point where spinners do come into play, it's probably towards the end in the Wankhede leg. And as you mentioned, spinners definitely will have a role to play tomorrow. In terms for me, from a neutral perspective, I actually think RCB can go on and make it 5 out of 5 simply because of the AB de Villiers factor. I think the AB factor is almost undeniable, and anyone knows. I mean, if he's able to pull it off at Chennai, I think, especially if RCB chase tomorrow, I think the AB factor is going to play a huge role. And just because RCB have AB tomorrow, I think RCB will tip CSK, but it's going to be a cracker of a game, as you mentioned, because two teams are built very similarly also in terms of having lots of batting and bowling options. Top order looking very strong on both sides, but simply because RCB have AB, I'm just backing RCB in that game.